Welcome back to my animal education series. Today I'm here with Fran Etter at her home, and we're going to be talking about alpacas. So, who are these guys here?
Well, I have two Surreys, and this is the mother, this is Isabel, and this is Ginger. And Isabel is 16 years old, and Ginger is her daughter, and she's 6 years old.
And today was an important day for them. You sheared them.
That's right, we did. We spent some time, about 30 minutes on each animal, and sheared them. I have just kind of asked my neighbors to help us out. We just use a shearing tool and have to change blades a few times because their fibers are pretty thick. The fibers are reflective of the type of alpaca they are, which is a Surrey versus a Huacaya. I don't have a Huacaya. They are more of a woolly type alpaca, so I can imagine that even shearing them would require a different grade of a blade to be able to work with them. So, but
It's like we can even hear the blades slowing down with how thick.
they have to be oiled. They have to be changed pretty frequently, about every 15 minutes or so. It's about all it can really stand because you have to really get through all the layers. Not to mention the fact that they roll in the dirt to stay cool in the summertime, and that compounds all of that in the fiber, and then that makes your blade kind of dull a little bit faster.
So do you sell the fiber at all?
I don't, but there is a market for it. I think that if it would probably be worth my time if I had more. That way, making a connection with a company of some sort that would be interested in the fibers would be worth my time. Since I just have two, I don't. I have given the fibers to people before who are interested in creating the like yarn or spinning them. There are quite a few spinners that really are interested in that sort of thing. They make their own yarn, and then they create products like scarves and things like that out of it. But I don't sell it. I just give it away if people are interested in it.
And obviously, you probably would do a cleaner method of doing it if it was going to a business.
Exactly.
Because you kind of shearing them in your pen.
That's right. That's right. We just shear them out here. There's a lot of dirt on it, so there would be more of a process that people would require that it's so that's less for them to have to handle. They would probably prefer the fibers to be clean before they got it, which is something that, again, I don't really have the tools and the time for.
Yeah. And why do you shear them?
The summertime gets very hot, as you know, in the Midwest, so they're not really tolerant of the heat. They are more of a mountainous type animal. Most of these animals come from the Andean highlands of South America, so this is really not typical of that kind of an atmosphere. So they do need to stay cool. They get stressed out a little bit too much if they don't get that, get some relief from that. So we shear them once a year, usually around June, just to try to get some of those layers off, so that they feel a little bit more comfortable and they're not so heat stressed.
And obviously your one alpaca is not the biggest fan of being sheared.
That's right, that's right.
It took 3 or 4 people to keep her in
Exactly, and
spot.
she's younger. She's only 6 years old, and the one that we sheared first, Isabel, she seemed to be a little bit calmer through it. She's been through it 16 times, so that makes kind of a difference. So having a younger one is going to always require a little bit more patience on our part.
Because it's still newer to her, and
That's
once
right.
a year is not that often.
That's right, that's right.
So why did you get into alpacas?
Well, I'm a Spanish teacher, and I like things all things Spanish. And besides things like Spanish food and traveling, I'm also curious about what kinds of animals are out there in a lot of Spanish-speaking countries.
When I was doing some research about alpacas earlier today, I found it very good with other farm animals like pigs and goats, and obviously you have goats in here as well.
That's right. They're herd animals. They want to be with another animal. Rarely would you see a person who has one alpaca in a pasture. It doesn't mean that it has to be with another alpaca, but another goat or any other small animal that would, respect the perimeter of the alpaca's territory would be a good companion animal for the alpaca. So they are a herd animal, and they do require that you have at least one other animal in to keep them so that they're not so stressed out from being alone.
So how did you come into possession of these alpacas?
Well, I owned two prior, and you get into, once you start getting into different kind of animals that might be sort of like your exotics, you learn that there's people that are out there that are just willing to sort of try something and then swap. So I swapped out some goats and things like that. But I kind of got just some conversations going with people. I started going to some different farms locally that I knew had some alpacas, started talking to people, and found people that were interested in downsizing their herds so that I wouldn't pay the high price that you oftentimes do for a registered alpaca that maybe is one that they're looking to sell the fibers in the market for. They're into the whole breeding process. I'm not really into all those kinds of things, so I just kind of would seek out a person that might be interested in downsizing their herd, go to them and ask them, what do you have that you think would be good to move away from your herd, and would, do you have a partner that would go with them that you feel would be comfortable at our house? And so I bought the most recent ones from up north here in Grand Fork from a couple that was getting rid of all of theirs. They were in the market for a while selling their fibers. She was a weaver, and then they decided to retire from their jobs, and they're now traveling, and so they wanted to get rid of their herd. So that's how I came across these.
And another thing I saw when I'm going to refer back to my research because I found a bunch of useless facts on that. But one of the things is that they're hypoallergenic as well.
I didn't even know that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as I told you earlier, apparently, supposedly according to some random website, they're fire resistant. Like their fiber is just.
Yeah, you taught me that today as well. I really didn't know that.
There's a bunch of cool facts about alpacas. It's kind of hard to do like actual research on alpacas.
Sure.
But there's a bunch of those weird facts, which is kind of neat.
Right. Exactly. And when I started to learn about them too, I just learned that there was a whole kind of group of these animals called camelids. Because the first thing somebody says is, alpaca, isn't that like a llama? I'm like, it is kind of like a llama, but there's a little bit of a difference. The ear shape is different. On a llama, they're curved. On an alpaca, they're straight. Llamas are bigger. And then llamas usually are more of a work animal or have been used in the Andes Mountains for transportation. Because people ask me often, do you ride your alpacas? I'm like, well, you could, but that's not really what they're for. The alpacas are usually bred and raised for their fibers so that people can create clothing out of them, fine suits and things like that, as opposed to an alpaca. And it belongs to the entire family called the camelid. There's also other breeds of these types of animals in South America, like the vicuña in Peru. It's much smaller, looks kind of like a deer. There's a guanaco is another type, and of course the camel belongs in that family too. But I've not really researched all of that. I've just really stuck with the good old alpacas here.
So that's what you have, so there's no real need to learn about all the rest.
Right.
Exactly. And they're very vocal animals as well.
They are. They make some noises. They have a humming noise that they make when they're just a little bit nervous, but just kind of curious. They also make a very high-pitched noise if they see a deer out in our orchard or if a fox runs by, and it's kind of alert signal, and it's really high-pitched and really quite alarming when you hear it the first time. You actually don't even think it's coming from your animal. I remember the first time I heard it, and we looked, and they were looking straight at the orchard, and they were looking at a fox that was out there, and they had really an alert call. So it's really high-pitched, but it's another way that they communicate.
Well, thank you so much for telling us about your alpacas.
Yep.
There's a lot of new information for me, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, good. Thank you very much for coming.
Absolutely. And it's awesome to see the whole sharing process.
Yeah, yep. It's always an adventure every year.
As I was hearing, like blood was drawn last year.
Yeah.
The one just doesn't like it that much.
No, she doesn't. You have to be very careful because you can kind of be kicked. It can be dangerous. You really kind of have to know what you're doing. You're dealing with blades. You're dealing with shearing tools. You're dealing with animals that are pretty strong.
And are nervous.
That's right. That's right. But if you can kind of keep them comfortable within their environment and not take them out of their environment to do it, I think you have a little better luck than if you move them to a new location to do it. So.
Well, again, thank you so much.
Sure.
And if you guys enjoyed this week's episode, don't forget to leave a big thumbs up down below, subscribe to my channel, and also check out my Instagram @ColeShirk. As always, I'll see you next week.